Linda Thompson. Welcome to the Author's Show. Do you have a lot of credit card debt? We hear in today's economy that things are a mess, not only in business, not only in government, but in our own households. Well, today I'm talking to a guy who was in a whale of a lot of credit card debt and found a way to get himself out of it, and he even wrote a book to help all of the rest of us. So my author today is Kenny Golde. Kenny, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Well, tell me a little bit about the book called The Do-It-Yourself Bailout, and I love the subtitle, How I Reduced My Credit Card Debt from $212,000 to $30,000 in 6 months and saved over $100,000. People are going to say, no way.
It's true. I did it.
And what was the process?
Well, I got into debt through a business venture. I'm a filmmaker. I was shooting a movie in Arizona called Uncross the Stars. We started going over budget. From a movie perspective, not that much, a couple $100,000. My financier and good friend very sadly became ill while we were shooting and passed away. And I found myself having to foot that bill to finish the film. It was close to $250,000, which I never anticipated having to do. I didn't have that much money in cash. I put in the cash I had, and the rest I put on a variety of credit cards and business lines of credit, much like many small business owners in America, funding their businesses and sometimes even their living expenses with credit cards to make up the shortfall between earnings and expenses.
And that's happening a lot these days. And I know some people personally that are basically paying all their bills on credit cards, and to use an old expression of my mother's, robbing Peter to pay Paul every month.
Yeah, well, let's not get into who's robbing who. I was paying nearly $4,000 a month in interest.
Wow.
As my debt to balance ratio started increasing, as the debt on each card reached the top, the interest rate started going up. Right. When you added up the interest with my regular monthly expenses and then put that against how much I actually had in savings, I saw myself having literally just a few months before I thought I was going to be destitute. So I visited a bankruptcy attorney to explore my options, and he told me something which I'd never heard of before. Many people have. Nowadays it seems to be much more common knowledge, but even just a year ago this was not a well-told secret, that it's possible to call up your banks and creditors and lenders and settle your debts for less than you owe through negotiation.
Well, I think it's just phenomenal that she wrote a book to help all these people out, because heaven knows we need it right now. And you don't see a whole lot of things that what I see in your book is a yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
And then you go on into the how-tos, and you give us a whole lot of paperwork in here of what actually happened in your story to show that it is real. So what are some of the things that you would advise people to start into if they find they're overwhelmed right now?
Well, the first thing I would advise is to visit a bankruptcy attorney and visit your accountant and talk about all of your options. Debt settlement is just one option, and it's a particular option that some people may or may not want to do or may not be able to do. But if you do choose debt settlement as the route that you want to go, you'll find that the first step you have to take is stop paying your credit card bills. The banks won't talk to you about settlements while you're current, because they'd rather advise you to keep paying and keep you current. Once you've stopped paying by a couple of months, you're going to start getting a lot of phone calls, depending on how many cards you had. I had 6 cards and 7 accounts, so I was getting a lot of phone calls. And I started to notice that there was a consistency among these phone calls, that even at different banks, these people on the phones who worked in the collection departments of the banks, they had a script that they were going by. They started off the phone calls the same way, they finished the phone calls the same way, and I started to realize that they're really treating this as a business. They, meaning the people on the bank side, they had researched this and done whatever they'd done to come up with a structure to the debt settlement process, and I quickly got that unless I paid attention to and worked within that structure, I wasn't going to get anywhere.
But don't you think that most people are so almost embarrassed? I mean, this is something that we've always kept hidden in the closet. We can't pay our bills. We don't know what we're going to do. God forbid you let your neighbor know that you're struggling. If your best friend invites you to dinner, you say, no, I can't afford it. She said, sure, we'll go. Everything's wonderful. Let's go celebrate, whatever. So how do you get people to accept reality?
Yeah, that's a big, big step, and it's one that I had to go through. When I found myself $212,000 in debt, $4,000 a month in interest, I was overwhelmed. I was scared. I was frightened for my future. I'd never been in more than about $10,000 on a credit card in my life. I had a good credit score, and I took a lot of pride in the fact that I, paid off my debts, and there's a lot of self-judgment that comes with not making that first credit card payment, a lot of self-recrimination. We attach a lot of emotionality to our debt in a negative way, and we tend to make the inability to manage our debt mean something bad about us as people. We tell ourselves we're wrong, there's shame involved, there's fear involved, and I realized quickly that I wasn't going to be able to negotiate my debts down from that position, because their job as the collectors is to make you emotional, put you off balance, and get you to write a check for as much as possible as quickly as possible.
Right.
So the more emotional you are, the less chance you're going to have of being successful in negotiating your debt. But in even a larger scale, I decided that I wanted to do the work on myself to separate that emotion, that self-judgment and self-recrimination from the debt, so that I could wake up every morning and be choiceful about living my life with joy and energy and enthusiasm, and not letting the debt live me, not living a life of dread and despair. I mean, there was a time at the beginning where I lost a girlfriend because I couldn't focus on building a relationship. I was quiet and withdrawn and reserved and didn't want to go out with my friends. Just like you said, I didn't want to go to lunch because I couldn't afford it. And I decided that no, I have debt, and I can live my life with that debt and not let that debt define who I am when I wake up every day.
I think it's really interesting that when we talk about debt, anyone that's a homeowner has debt, but that's okay.
Right.
But if you have credit card debt, you don't want to talk about that.
We compartmentalize.
And
true.
so it becomes a very emotional, this is my thing. And we all know that the government isn't going to give us a bailout. So I
wrote the Do-It-Yourself
That's
bailout.
right, and I love the title. So where can we find the Do-It-Yourself bailout?
On my website, which is www.settleyourcreditcards.com, or if you can't remember that, you can just go to the doityourselfbailout.com.
And in about 30 seconds or less, what is the first thing that you would tell people that they need to do if they're in this position?
I'll try and give you the top three. Get advice and help from professionals. If you choose debt settlement, you get all your debts, get all your agreements in writing. Never send anybody a check without having your agreement in writing. Separate emotion from your debt and live your life. Don't let your debt live you.
Kenny, what perfect advice. I don't know of anybody that would not be able to benefit from that. And for those of you out there who are expecting the government bailout, guess what, folks? It's not coming. So the do-it-yourself bailout's probably your next best thing. Kenny has written a wonderful resource book for you. You now know where you can get it, and my advice would be let's all go out and start working on it and put money back into the economy and not towards interest. So I'm Linda Thompson. This is The Author Show, and we hope to see you next time. But in the meantime, a book can change a life one word at a time.